What's going on? It's Paul here checking in with your spring 2023 housing market update for Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. In this video, we're going to cover recent news headlines and what they mean for home buyers and home sellers. We're going to check out the most recent data for home sales and home prices. And spoiler alert, one of those is way down. We're going to cover rental prices and the impacts they're having on home sales. And then we're going to jump into mortgage rates because we know that those have a very big impact on home buying affordability. So, since this is a spring housing market update, let's hop on in. Real estate is hyper-local, so what you may see or hear on the news happening in one area doesn't necessarily apply to all of the US. Take into account this article here from the Wall Street Journal. A tale of two housing markets. Prices fall in the West while the East booms. They took data from the mortgage data firm Black Knight and noted that in all of the 12 major housing markets west of Texas, plus Austin, home prices fell in January on an annual basis. Now, if you look at the 37 biggest metro areas east of Colorado, not taking into account Austin, you'll see that prices rose year over year. You'll see areas like San Francisco and San Jose, prices fell more than 10% year over year. And then areas like Miami were up 12%. So looking at the map here, you can see that for the most part, going further east, prices held up better. The Midwest in general has been a very resilient market. Then you look at this one that's going to be a more local article from the Chicago Tribune. The spring housing market stalling as a record low inventory plagues buyers. And that's true. That is a local article, and that's what we're seeing. So the article says spring is typically a time when the number of real estate transactions starts to pick up again after the slower winter months. But this year, Chicago area buyers are facing historically low levels of available homes as more sellers stay on the sidelines because of high mortgage rates and fears that the tight supply of homes might make it difficult for them to find another place to live. So jumping into the data, we're going to start with the Chicagoland housing market, and then we're going to move on to the Chicago area specifically. After that, I'm going to dial into the local MLS info to give you an idea of the most current information that we have on what's going on with home sales in the spring market. All right, so for the Chicago metro area, February 2023 compared to February 2022, the closed sales are down 29.4%. That means the amount of homes that have actually sold in February 23 versus 2022. If you look at that for January, the numbers were down 38.2%. So a slight improvement in February over January, but still way down from last year. Median sales price is $290,000, which is flat. And the inventory of homes for sale is down 12%. Days on the market has increased by 2.6%. If we look at this activity and break it down by the property types, looking at single family, that's down 28% for the amount of homes that have closed, and condos are down 31.6% for the amount of condos that have closed. And that's how we get to that average of 29.4% decrease compared to February of last year. If we look at sales prices by type, single family home sale prices are down 1.1% compared to the same month last year. Condo prices are up 5.4%. And if we average those out, that's how we get to the relatively flat prices because condos are up and single family is down. Looking at this graph here gives you an idea seasonally what home prices do. The blue line is the Chicago metro area, whereas the gray line is the state of Illinois. And you can see the seasonality where prices tend to peak in the spring months and then tend to pull back from their peaks as sellers that have not sold or are no longer experiencing that rush of the spring buyers adjust their prices to make sure that they can sell before the fall and winter months, which tend to be the slowest times of the year. Jumping into the city of Chicago, we see closed sales are down 37.3% in February of 2023 compared to the amount of sales we saw in February of 2022. That is a slight improvement from January, which was down 40.4%. Median sales price is down 2.3%. The inventory of homes for sale is down 18.3%. So we have 18.3% less homes available for sale, but the amount of closed sales are down 37%. So even though we've got less homes available to sell, there's still less sales happening. So it is somewhat balancing out compared to what we saw a year before, but still overall a seller's market. If you look at the days on the market, the days on the market is actually down 4.1%, meaning it's taking 47 days to sell a property versus 49 days in February of 2022. Breaking that down by the property type, single family homes, the amount of homes that sold are down 41.2%. Condos are down by 34.8%. And that's how we get that 37.3% in February compared to last February, which I mentioned just before this. Median sales price for single family homes is up 2.8%, whereas condo prices are down 7.2% in the city of Chicago. And that's how we get that average for all properties being down 2.3%, coming in at that price of $312,500 for the median sales price. Median price is the middle priced sale of all the sales that have occurred. So it doesn't take into account averages if you have a lot of very expensive homes or a lot of homes on the entry level that sell. The median takes into account right in the middle where homes are selling. Checking out this graph here, we see again, blue line here is for the city of Chicago, whereas gray line is the state of Illinois. And you see how prices have performed, and you do see that seasonality with the spring market, and that's where the peaks that you see there on the graph are. So that's data from the Illinois Association of Realtors taking us through February of 2023. Let's dive into the local MLS data for up to the week information about what's going on since then. This data takes us through the first week of April of 2023, and you see the light green lines here are the previous year closed sales, and compare that to the turquoise bluish lines here. Those are the current year closed sales on a weekly basis. And the big thing we could take away from this is again, closed sales are way down compared to where they were last year. You look at the last week in March, first week of April, we had 2,230 closed sales, whereas a year ago we had 3,558. That's a massive change in closed sales. Looking at the amount of homes under contract, we see that the turquoise lines are staying lower than the green ones, meaning that the amount of homes under contract are lower this year compared to last year. Same thing with new listings. Again, the trend is lower. We have less homes selling, but we still have low inventory because less people are listing compared to last year. Looking at the amount of options that are rented, again, also down compared to last year. With sold prices, we see the bars are almost equivalent on some weeks, sometimes surpassing even the prices of last year, while others they're pretty close or marginally lower, but overall pretty stable. Rental prices we see are actually higher than they were last year. And so the rise in rent prices is pushing more and more renters to consider buying, even though the interest rates are higher than they were last year. It's costing more money to rent the same place this year than it did last year. And catching this article here, we see that Chicago sees the number 10 largest monthly rent increase among the largest cities in the US. That made the news. Are you finding these market updates helpful, and do you want me to continue making more? If so, hit that like button to let me know. And as a thank you, here's a picture of NASCAR, because this year NASCAR is coming to Chicago for a 2-day music and racing festival with some pretty big names. Thanks for hitting that like button, and if you want to get notified as I do release more content about Chicago, the local suburbs, real estate, and how it has an impact on you, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified when I do release that new information. So, what does the Chicagoland housing market have in store for the spring market? Checking out these graphs from the University of Illinois at Chicago, prepared for the Illinois Association of Realtors, they've actually forecasted those numbers. So, looking at the purple and the red lines here, the purple is January, February, and March of 2023, and the red is the forecast for what they expect to happen with home prices and home sales for March, April, and May. And you see those red dots are very close to the blue dots. The blue dots are last year, 2022. So the same month last year compared to 2023 here, it's going to be pretty close to what we saw for prices last year. Looking at total home sales, they are going to be lower. So, continuing what we've seen from the beginning of this year, we're going to sell less homes this year compared to last year. And again, looking here, that is that red compared to the blue. And you see how much higher the green line is. Green line is 2021. Looking at the month's supply of inventory by price range here gives you an idea of where we are compared to the previous 2 years. So looking at the blue bars, month supply of inventory below 6 months tends to favor sellers more. And the lower that number is, the more in favor of sellers that is. We can see all price points holding up well. Weakest is going to be over that $700,000 range, being the higher priced homes, but still a seller's market. And lastly, diving into what mortgage interest rates are doing and what kind of impact that's having on home buyers and home sellers. As I've mentioned in previous videos, buyers are very interest rate sensitive. And so, as rates go up, that has a very large impact on their buying power, or to put differently, the amount of home they can buy. As we can see here, a buyer spending $325,000 borrowing at 7% is going to have a mortgage payment of 2162, whereas if they get a mortgage at 6%, their mortgage payment is going to be 1948. That's just for principal and interest, doesn't take into account taxes, and it's if they're borrowing 325,000, not if they're buying for 325. So that's actual loan amount, but that amount equates to roughly an 11% increase in your monthly mortgage payment for principal and interest if rates go from 6% to 7%. So, where are rates now? We see interest rates for the first week of April on a 30-year fixed rate loan at 6.3%. And that's almost 1% lower than they were in November of 2022. So that's a very large swing in less than a half of a year. And that impacts how much home a buyer is able to buy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you're thinking about buying in the Chicago or the suburbs, you may want to check out this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.